City of Greenville, in collaboration with
The meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the July 21, 2026 meeting of the City of Greenville Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is John Collins. I'm the chair of this commission. Grice, will you do the invocation?
Yes. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here together tonight. Give us wisdom to discuss the matters on the agenda and make us, or let us have the your best decision in mind and guide our conversations. In your name I pray, amen.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
John Collins.
Present.
Carlos White.
Here.
Kimber Stone. Thomas Remington.
Here.
Spencer Newton.
Here.
Alan Thomas. Clayton Sell. William McCurry. Brad Carter. Toya Jacobs. Annika Royal. Here. And Grice Bell.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Spencer to the commission. All right, our next item is approval of the agenda. I don't know of any reason to move items around. So if somebody will move to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, approval of the minutes. You've all been presented in advance with the minutes from the June 9, 2026 and June 16, 2026 meetings and have had an opportunity to read and review the minutes. Are there any questions or corrections?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Two sets.
Ah,
Yeah, if you want to do it, if you'll just pull both dates, if you're good, you can do it as one motion.
you move to approve both?
Move to approve both dates.
Second. We have a motion to approve both sets of minutes. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is that okay? Yeah, Thomas, give a second. Is there, all those in favor say aye. We did that, right? Okay. Opposed, say nay. All right, we're good with the minutes. All right, new business. Request by POBO LLC to rezone a total of 56.3694 acres from RA20 residential agriculture to I industry for tract 1, 47.5794 47.5795 acres to O-CA Office Conservation Overlay for Tract 2, 8.6062 acres, and to O Office for Tract 3, 0.1837 acres for the property located at the northeastern corner of the intersection of Old Creek Road and Tram Lane. Staff presentation by Shante Gooby.
So, this property is located in the northeastern quadrant of the city, is shown by the red star. And then this is an aerial photograph, so the property is along Old Creek Road. When we get to the survey, I'll kind of go through the tracks. It's just a little bit easier. But we do have track 1, which is the largest. Track 2 runs around the periphery, and then track 3, I've got a little blow up of that so you can see what it looks like. And then this is Martin Luther King Jr. Highway. So this is a blow up of track 3. You can see it's just sort of a little trapezoid shape. It's hard to actually see on the aerial, so we just wanted to blow it up for you a bit. And now I'll go through the requested zoning. So the total is 56 acres. Track 1 is the largest. And the requested zoning is for industry, and it's about 48 acres. Track 2, which runs around the periphery, about 8.5 acres. The request is for office-CA, which is conservation area overlay. I've got a slide to talk about that in a second. And then track 3, which is just down here in the bottom, very small, almost 2/10, and it's just plain office. So this is a photograph of the property, Old Creek Road. So Martin Luther King Jr. Highway would be to your right-hand side. This property is located near an activity center. Again, this is just where we would expect some sort of activity, whether it be commercial or industrial. So under the current zoning, which is RA20 at full build out, the expectation for trips would be approximately 1,600. And at full build out under the industrial zoning, it would be about 1,550. So at the end of the day, it's a net reduction of 43 trips. So since it was a net reduction, then we didn't give you the full traffic study like we normally do, because again, it's a decrease in traffic. This property is not located in a special flood hazard area. There is a potential for jurisdictional wetlands, buffers, and streams. It's located in the Johnson Mill Parkers Creek watershed, and if stormwater rules apply, it will require 10-year detention. So for the zoning, so the property is currently RA20. The request very easily, track 1 is for industry, track 2 is for office with a conservation area, track 3 is plain office. So this is a section out of the UDO. This specifically deals with conservation area overlay. This is nothing new. We've had it in the old ordinance. We've brought it forward. Doesn't get used a whole lot, but at the end of the day, the purpose is that the overlay has the force of zoning, just like on any other piece of property. But what this does is when you add the CA overlay, it prohibits any kind of building, structures, or parking in that area. So that strip that wraps around the bigger parcel would not have buildings or parking in it. And then just a little bit further in the UDO, it talks about it should be undeveloped and vacant, and again, not for use for any kind of building. And it should be at least 100 feet at its narrowest dimension. So why did the applicant do this? The future land use plan recommends industry and logistics, which is in gray. And then you'll see you have the green, which is potential conservation area and open space. And then that transitions out into residential. So the green on the map really serves two purposes. It serves a purpose for, 1, potential environmental constraints, and then 2, to have some sort of a buffer between the industry and the residential. And so that's why on the edge of the property, you can see they've picked up the conservation overlay. So that was the intent behind it. So in staff's opinion, the request is in compliance with the future land use plan. Staff recommends approval, and I will be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, so track 2 is the overlay?
Yes.
Can you go back to that? I was kind of curious when you say that. So, all right, that makes sense. That's the buffer that they're talking about.
That is a
Is this a neighbor?
specific buffer, so no buildings, no parking from the industry. Essentially, it should stay in its natural state. I think there might be some trees along there, but essentially it shouldn't be developed. That's the intent behind it.
I rode out there. I was just trying to figure out like how that worked when I went out there, but
Right.
I understand now.
Okay.
Any other questions for Ms. Gooby? Thank you. The public hearing is now open. The first speaker will have 5 minutes, with each additional speaker having 3 minutes until 30 minutes has expired. Is there anyone present to speak in favor of this request? Sir, if you could state your name for the record, you'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening, board members. Ken Malpas, representing Pobo. What you have before you tonight is what, after meeting with the Boudelays and Mr. Rizik and Mr. Thayer, who both have easements along that tramway. The office part without the conservation easement is so that access can still be allowed, because if you had it across the whole width, a drive is not allowed that's being used for the easement. After meeting with them, there was three more things agreed to: that this industrial property would not tie into that tramway. The main purpose, well, the origin of this is the property owner to the south wants to buy an additional 60 feet so he can take the rear of his property and go back out to 60, 80 feet. Some of this ain't been finalized on that yet. And that the driveway for the addition would be 100 foot back from his fence, so it would not be close to the residential in the back. Other than that, I'll be glad to answer any questions. I think it's pretty straightforward. And the origin of the conservation easement was after the meeting to add the 100 foot to it, to protect the adjacent residential areas.
Any questions for Mr. Malpas?
No, you already answered it, because I rode out there. I was really trying to just picture what was going on out there, and you just explained everything to me, so I think.
There is a recorded easement for the two parties in the back, and that was the purpose of leaving that .03 or whatever that acreage was. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else present to speak in favor of the request? Seeing none, is there anyone present to speak in opposition to the request? Seeing with no other speakers, the public hearing is closed. I'll turn it over to the board for discussion or motion. Full language.
Motion to recommend approval of the proposed amendment to advise it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and to adopt the staff report which addresses plan consistency and other matters.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, the next one is a longer one. Should have brought a water bottle for this. Request by the Community and Development Services Department to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, to add definitions and standards for the short-term rental homestay and short-term rental whole house lodging uses, and adding these uses to section 313, table of uses as permitted uses in the following zoning districts: RA20 residential agricultural, R15S residential single family, R9S residential single family, RXS residential single family, R9 residential, R6 residential, R6A residential, R6MH residential mobile home, TH10 tiny home community, MR medical residential, MRS medical residential single family, OR office residential, CD downtown commercial, and CDF downtown commercial fringe. Staff presentation by Shante Gooby.
So before we get to this, I just want to talk a little bit about the purpose of this text amendment. So it is to establish a short-term rental, and we'll talk about what that means here in a second, to establish it as a use, what zoning districts it's allowed in, and then some standards that come along with that. So there's two different definitions for short-term rentals. This is, I'll say a little bit of an industry standard as far as the name and the intent. If you've stayed at a short-term rental, typically the most popular right now are Vrbo or Airbnb. There are other offshoots of them. At the end of the day, it's still the same thing no matter what platform you use. The short-term rental homestay is essentially when you're staying in a house or an apartment, a tiny home. I've even seen a yurt, if you will, that's an Airbnb, and it's when you're staying with the host. And then if you have the whole premises to yourself, then that's what's called a short-term rental whole house lodging. So when you hear homestay, you have the host with you, they're staying in another part, and then the whole house lodging is exactly what it sounds like. The host is not on the premises. For the bottom one, when it talks about the whole house lodging, this is a residential use. So this is not a hotel, a motel, or a bed and breakfast. Those are totally separate uses. So this is a map. There is some websites out there where you're actually able to gather data on short-term rentals. It may be if you're interested in having a short-term rental. So we were able to use this website that we were able to determine with some approximation the current locations of short-term rentals here in Greenville. These are ones that are only listed on Vrbo and Airbnb. We try to take out the duplicates because you can advertise them on different platforms. And then on the right-hand side, we're just showing you the districts that they're located in and then the number of units. And so right now, we're about 270 units. So now I want to talk about the standards. For the short-term rental homestayer, when you're staying with a host, a lot of these same standards are going to apply. So I'm going to go through them first, and then we'll talk about what standards are additional with the whole house. So for a short-term rental homestay, first of all, recognize we already have short-term rentals in existence, so we've got something in here that'll take care of that. But this would be for new short-term rentals. The owner or the operator would need to get a zoning compliance permit. This is a very simple one-pager. It doesn't take an attorney to fill out the permit application, but they would need to get a permit. No sort of exterior advertising on the outside of the unit. Okay, you know how sometimes you go to the beach and they've got like the name of the house or something like that. Other than the address, there's no sort of advertising. The owner or the host would also need to have, and this would be submitted with the permit application, a certificate of insurance in the amount of $1 million in liability insurance. And so that would be, $1 million is pretty typical standard rate when you're doing liability insurance. Also, no sort of special events or gatherings in excess of the registered guests. So sometimes you may have a situation where it's a party or something like that. And so this is to try to limit an excessive number of people. So for any existing short-term rentals, this text amendment is slated to go to council August 13th. And so what this does is this gives a whole year, 365 days, for any existing ones, if they do want to continue, to also get the permit. Same rules apply, but it does give them a grace period of a year in order to do the paperwork that they would need to do. And then one last thing that we'll talk about, and the intent behind this is that short-term rentals are good neighbors within the neighbors that they reside. So when you think of potential side effects, it could be excessive noise, it could be illegal parking, such as parking all over the yard, or maybe blocking the street, or maybe even some trash and debris. And so the intent is that short-term rentals, again, act and operate as a good neighbor. So this last standards just talks about that if a short-term rental receives more than 3, and it can be citations, it doesn't have, or warnings, either one, for things such as the noise, trash, debris, and illegal parking within a 12-month period, then they can have their permit revoked. Now, this is not intended to be punitive. It's intended that if you do have perhaps a bad situation with a set of guests, this isn't an automatic. It's really just trying to keep the hosts and the operators responsible for the unit that they're renting. The very last sentence talks about citations, and I'll get to that here in a few slides. I wanted to get through the standards. So you're going to see we're now switched over to the whole house lodging or without a host. You see there's the very same standards that we just talked about. And now we get to the difference. The City of Greenville already has a standard that if you have a rental property in Greenville and you do not reside in Pitt County, then we have a contact for whom to get in touch with that's local if there were some issue. If it were in terms of a regular rental, let's just say the fire sprinkler system broke and you've got water spewing everywhere, it's a way for the city to be able to get in contact with the property manager, the rental company, to say you've got a problem. So we want to use that same tool that we have for short-term rentals where maybe someone owns the house in Greenville, but they reside in Raleigh. And what this does is this is just saying, Mr. Collins lives in Pitt County, and he's going to be the person that if there's a problem, you can reach out to him because I live in Virginia. It's a one-pager, it's name, address, and how to get in contact with you, phone number, email. The other thing that this would be used for would be, again, if there is an excessive or an over-the-top situation, maybe this is a house in a single-family neighborhood, things have went a little awry, things aren't getting under control, we have some sort of a local contact to get in touch with. If I'm in Virginia, I may not have a clue anything is going on. And then, again, this is just saying that if you switch contacts, you let us know who the new contact is. So this is out of the UDO. This is just for citations, and this just gives you the citation schedule. So if there were a situation were to arise where a citation would be assessed, the first violation is $100. The second violation, and that's within 1 year of the first, escalates to $250. Third violation, again within 365 of the first violation, escalates to $5. This is the table of uses. So this is showing you all the different zoning districts in the city. And so both of these uses, no matter if it's with the host or without the host, would be permitted uses in the residential zoning districts. So if you look across and wherever you see a red P, then that means that these uses would become permitted by right. So not a special use permit, but a zoning compliance permit. And you'll also notice that districts that are non-residential, medical office, industrial, those are not included because that's typically not where you would have a short-term rental located. So, in staff's opinion, this request is in compliance with the comprehensive plan, specifically Chapter 5, creating complete neighborhoods, Goal 5.1, which is strong existing neighborhoods. This says Greenville will have strong established neighborhoods with support for neighborhood organizations, high-quality housing, unique character, and a robust integration with the rest of the community. So with that being said, staff recommends approval, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I have one about the advertising. I'm curious what constitutes advertising, because you mentioned having a sign with a name. Lots of, maybe not so much around here, but like at the beach, lots of houses will have a sign that the name for the place, right? Is that permitted, as long as you don't have like a phone number or something?
And
Yeah.
the address of the location so that you know where you're at.
Yeah.
And then typically in most short-term rentals I've stayed in, typically there's contact information on the inside when you get in if you have issues, but it would be restricted to the addressing of the unit.
So you couldn't have a name like?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. I don't know if anybody does that around here, but there's a lot of them. Like
In
if
the
you go out
beach.
to Atlantic Beach and,
Very popular, yes.
you know, all right.
What brought on this? I'm just curious about it.
This has been a discussion item with council through the years. This was something that was discussed a couple of years ago. It was brought back up. I think that there are times when you have a few bad apples and you have one or two properties that are really causing trouble, a little harder to nip it in the bud, so you have to think of it more holistically. So that's why, again, this isn't intended to be punitive, but it is intended to get us complete contact information if there's an issue, and then also that if we do have a history of having some issues, we have a way of knowing what properties that would, I'll say the affected properties.
Right.
And we did have 2 or 3 people come to city council and complain about a couple Airbnb circumstances where they were disruptive. They were stating it was kind of ruining their quality of life. I know city council member Pro Tem Foreman and Hardy have really taken like a concerted effort to address code enforcement and housing and stuff. So that's kind of what the precipice for all this was. And the way it's been crafted and fashioned is about as legally defensible as we can prepare it, essentially, because this is kind of a lot of murky, kind of gray area for the most part. So.
Right, I wrote a list, because I was wondering, I'm like, is this legal? And the reason why I was asking that, because like when you say a permit has to be submitted, but what would be on the permit that would exclude someone from even being able to do it?
Nothing other than,
Just kind of documentation in general for it being an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Okay.
again, it just gives us,
It's essentially so the city can be aware of what's happening, what's going on,
Yep.
keeping some, without it being like a complete annual kind of registration aspect, which is not allowed under law.
And what is the need for the extra insurance, considering that someone would already have homeowner insurance anyway?
Again, there's kind of limitations in regards to what kind of investigative kind of responses we can do, whether it be like smoking, all this kind of stuff, as far as safety is concerned. So I think from the city's perspective, ensuring that they have that type of insurance just is kind of a fail-safe.
Because it's operating as residential, but
Right.
not really.
Right.
as a
So
business.
so it kind of muddies the water in regards to what we can do from an enforcement perspective.
Yeah.
This way, there's some assurances that there will at least be something covered if something were to happen. And I think, I don't think Raleigh does it, but I think Asheville does. There's a couple other locales when they're trying to regulate short terms that have that insurance requirement.
So
And
there
I
was
doubt that-
There was no standard before this for any of this.
Right, so that's the only reason I'm asking, because, like, for example, and it's just happened to have been brought up, like a person that literally just bought some property here and was at the table talking, he was like, he's gonna Airbnb it out, and I was like, well, it sounds a good idea. But then when I seen this on the agenda, I'm like, I didn't say anything, right? I'm
Yeah,
like,
you know, I mean, it's
but he
something-
doesn't stay here, you know, so I'm
Yeah.
like, how does that work, you know? So I,
Again, it's kind of something throughout the state. I think everybody's kind of trying to finagle and try to see what they can do to address it or put some safeguards in place.
Right.
Obviously, 10 years ago, the amount, the sheer volume, the number of this was way less than it is now. So I think now that there are starting to be some kind of community disruptions or people that might be a bad neighbor, the idea is just having some check in place so you can have a response. Because a lot of this stuff doesn't rise to a criminal offense or anything like that. It's really, as she stated, being a good neighbor, being responsible, making sure somebody's going to cover whatever damage is going to be in place, something along those lines.
You can be his designee.
No, I'm not. But would they, after the third offense, what happens after that? Do they like get pulled from being able to do it? And how does that work? I mean, I'm just curious.
From a planning side, which is where the permit resides, first of all, we would rather have voluntary compliance, make you aware of the issues. Maybe you didn't know that you were having some renters coming through that were a little obnoxious, a little loud. Put them on notice. And then again, the intent is not to be punitive, but it is to maybe screen your renters a little bit more, maybe reach out to your neighbors, that if there is a problem, there is a way that they can reach you. You know, of course, if you are a neighboring property, you have the ability to call the platform yourself, and they all have policies where
Yeah,
if
they
you
can revoke their ability to do it.
yeah, they can revoke the listing. So this is just sort of a two-prong. You can go through the platform, and then we also have a tool as well. And again, it's not intended to be punitive, but it would certainly be, I guess, what one could call a counseling session
Right.
on their permit.
And I get it. I mean, I know everybody wants their quality of life to be protected. It's just that if you have I'm just thinking like if you have a neighbor and you have your grandkids with you that are out in the yard screaming during the daytime, that neighbor might not like that. And then he calls and that's $50.
Yeah, but you're talking
You know?
about a dispute with your neighbor in regards to the behavior of their family, rather than a neighbor that might be using their house as like a commercial aspect of it. So
Okay.
it kind of changes we might be a lot more patient with somebody's child or their grandchild than
Right.
somebody running
Yeah,
a business
the
every
kids,
weekend and having
right.
people coming in.
Gotcha.
And again, I mean, that's kind of the reason for the treatment. And again, you know, as I think we've discussed several times throughout this commission, none of this is ever punitive. It's always kind of complaint-based, trying to just remedy the behavior. If somebody reaches the point where they've had that many violations and they've been fined and it's still not, I mean, at this point, there's probably criminal stuff, you're trying to revoke the permit, but you never hope to get to that. It's kind of like with special use permits, you know, you technically can revoke those. I don't think we ever have the entire time I've represented the city. So again, it's not something we ever want to do. It's just a bullet in the chamber, so to speak.
Right. Right.
And this mainly applies to the whole housing, not like, if you were in the house with the person, right? Because you'd know what's going on. If-
Hopefully,
Yeah.
I would think that the majority of this probably would come with the ones without hosts on site. But at the end of the day, they're both in the same bucket,
Okay.
and they both have the same standards that they have to comply with. The only real difference would be to have a local contact.
Right.
But other than that, they really have parallel standards.
Gotcha.
All right.
So with the 3 violations, code enforcement has discretion on whether or not to issue that violation, correct? Or whoever gets called.
Yeah, usually there would be an investigation following
Okay.
a
Yeah.
complaint. They would show up, they would see if there's validity to it, they would document it. And then if there is a violation, there's usually notice, opportunity to be heard, due process protections, appeal rights, all those types of things.
The reason I ask is exactly what you were saying about, like, if somebody is renting your house and you have your, family out and they're being loud, if your neighbor's just being rude about it, that would be up to them.
There
But
is-
also,
oh, go ahead.
the third violation doesn't guarantee the permit being revoked, right?
Right, it just allows the option.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
And I will say too, that, I mean, you can see it's been fashioned to where warning and citation are kind of used the same.
Mhm.
Those don't necessarily carry the same legal significance, but at the same time, it'll be the discretion of whoever's investigating to show up and say, we think this is valid, we're gonna give you a warning. That's not gonna carry a punitive civil cost, you're not gonna have to pay us any money or anything, but like, you're on notice, this isn't okay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we'll see it shake out, but ultimately, just like anything, if this needs to be adjusted, if we need to reevaluate, if we need to take something back to you guys, we absolutely will.
All right.
Thank you.
So the short-term rentals, they've never been held to a certain standard
It
before
hasn't-
this?
It has not been defined as a use for the city of Greenville. So there's been no real bucket to put it in, essentially. And again, 10 years ago, it was like maybe 5, there's only a few people doing it. Now it's kind of becoming such a thing where there's an attempt to kind of regulate it. Does that make sense? And the legislature could just come up in like 6 months and change all of this stuff.
I'm sure it will happen.
It's been a source of a lot of debate.
Thanks.
And every remaining item does have that language.
All right. All right, the public hearing is open. The first speaker will have 5 minutes, with each additional speaker having 3 minutes until 30 has expired. Is there anyone present to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone present to speak in opposition to this request? With no other speakers, with no speakers, the public hearing is closed, and I'll turn it over to the board for discussion or a motion.
What kind of motion is this?
Long, long.
All right.
Go for it.
Motion to recommend approval of the proposed amendment to advise that although the proposed amendment, oh, that's not it. So where are we at?
You got it?
No. All right, to approve. Motion to recommend approval of proposed amendment to advise that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and to adopt the staff report which addresses plan consistency and other matters.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item, request by the Community and Development Services Department to clarify the required number of professional security personnel in alcohol establishments, bar 2022, microbrewery, and microdistillery that provide amplified entertainment after 11 p.m. Staff presentation by Shante Gooby.
I will try to keep this as short and sweet as I can with giving you an explanation for why we're back with this. In December, I brought a text amendment that was, the intent was to standardize, if you will, the standards for those 4 different, what I call alcohol establishments at the end of the day. They all have the ability to have mixed beverages permit. And when I did that, what came out at the council meeting was this, my language didn't actually make sense. And I'm going to show you that language in a minute. I brought it back to council in May. And at that meeting, there was some discussion about perhaps the standards were a little burdensome. So after some discussions, I'm bringing it back to you with the same language I brought with the corrected information. At the end of the day, if any of those 4 types of uses have amplified entertainment after 11 p.m., then they do have to have security personnel. UDO basically says amplified entertainment is any type of music or other entertainment delivered through and by an electronic system, microphone, cell phone. It's kind of wide open. And so what I had originally brought was it broke it down into the occupancy of the building. And you'll see I've got a red circle there where it says 1. And then at the bottom, I have a sentence, though, that says you shall employ no less than 2. Well, that doesn't work. So I brought back the amended language that basically says occupancy in the building from 1 to 200 requires 2 personnel. I still have the same sentence in there that says shall employ no less than 2 security guards. And so I'm bringing that back to basically fix it because the original language didn't make any sense. Again, as I've talked about, this only applies to these uses, only applies if they had amplified entertainment after 11 p.m. And this is the same reasoning that I used before. Staff recommends approval based on the comp plan. There's 2 different ones. Policy 4.31, which says modernize and diversify the local economy, support growth, and a variety of employment opportunities and businesses, and also encourage business growth within the incorporated areas and expand and diversify Greenville's tax base. And then the last one just talks about policy 1.4.4, which talks about support and control of uptown nightlife. These uses are allowed citywide, but it does talk about having rules and regulations, still allowing these uses. But at the end, it says this does not mean nightlife activities need to be allowed to run out of control. Appropriate standards for these businesses should be enforced so that Uptown can be enjoyed safely and responsibly. So those are the two different things I cite. With that, I'm glad to answer any questions, but again, staff recommends approval, and I apologize for having to bring this back twice. I'm sorry.
I just got one question. So security and bouncers, the same thing, right?
No.
So-
The security personnel that we have here is actually defined and described in general statutes. And so it is more of a security officer that is certified and has training, unlike a bouncer. A bouncer is a more rudimentary term. I don't think there's a lot of teeth with that title. This does have specific qualifications for what's called security personnel.
Right. So that's where the variability goes in, if that's the word that they were using. Because the people who have those permits on insurance, when they have the questions asking, do you have bouncers, do you have security, and if security have the car, then their insurance goes up.
There's a tier. There's a different level.
Right.
It's a different expense, but also a different level of, I would say, training and education, depending on what the people with those titles have.
Right. So, and the reason why it would be a burden on a business, especially a small business that probably has, I don't know, you have one security guard, but say they only have 15 patrons after 11, but that security guard, because he knows he's going to get $140 an hour, versus these guys just hanging out in there and not really buying anything. So now that business is not even going to thrive at all. And not only that, his insurance is going to be high, because once you say security, the word security on that application, the word bouncer, when you check those boxes, determines it's going to be $12,000 a year versus $8,000 a year. So that's going to be a lot. That's going to be a lot. And that's probably why a lot of people was complaining, because I didn't know that. Because I'm thinking like, okay, a bouncer, because the Greenwood Police, they offer the bouncer training. And so we have to go down there and let the people.
And this would be much more in the form of an off-duty police officer as far as to meet the security requirements.
But they don't always take the shifts.
That's correct. You could go through a private security company.
And that's where it's going to really get expensive for an entity to try to thrive. So those words can't be changed on this amendment as far as like security versus bouncer?
No, I mean, I think the way it's defined is very purposeful, because they want them to have those qualifications and that training. The dollar amount you say $130 an hour?
Yes, for security. Yeah, that's if they even do it.
When we talked about it in meetings, and when I looked it up, it was like 40 or 50, yeah. And that's for like an off-duty police officer.
But off-duty police officers don't always take the shift.
I know, I'm just saying.
So now you're in violation.
The rate, I don't know where you got that rate, but it was 3 times.
No, I'm saying security. I didn't say that. I'm not saying extra duty solutions as far as the Greenwood
I'm
Police
just letting you
Department.
guys know, council had discussed the price and the burden on business owners, and the rate that they had discussed was about a third of what you had discussed. So
Right.
maybe there's a disparity in that amount. I'm not.
Oh, no,
sure.
it really is, because I'm really boots on the ground when it comes to that. So I'm pretty much speaking from what I know.
Yeah.
So it's a big difference, especially on your application for your insurance. And also when you put your business in that portal for an officer to take that shift. If that officer doesn't take that shift, then now that business becomes in violation because they don't have security.
Right.
Right? So now he's saying he can't open his doors because nobody took the shift. So now he's hanging in the balances. So this is going to be a real kind of sticky little situation for any business that's trying to thrive based off of extra duty solutions or any security company.
Well, and this is new moving forward.
Right.
So this isn't for any in the past. And again, only for amplified entertainment after 11.
Right.
So you can be open until 11 with nobody.
Right.
But you can't play any music though. It just have to be us in there talking at the 11.
Before 11.
If he cannot afford, or if a officer doesn't take that shift to come and be a security at his door. So it's That's very tough, man.
Well, just for the commission's edification, I mean, they had some pretty significant discussions about this, and obviously, as you're probably aware, since you're in the business, just with the bouncers as opposed to security personnel or law enforcement, the bouncers, I mean, just from my criminal work for the last 10 years, there's been countless incidents between bouncers and patrons and stuff like that. So the public safety aspect, I think, is the biggest concern, at least for council in regards to how they gave that direction. I think they felt the dollar amount, whatever it was going to correspond to, made sense in regards to the operation and the risk to public safety. So again, you're right with your vote. You can also, with the motion, include a note to council in regards to the concerns about that. I think that's all fair play. But they did discuss the financial burden. I do think there's going to be some small businesses that, that could be a hit. But I think the protection of life, protection of, these hours and those circumstances, I know you've expressed it before, that being familiar with how dangerous that can be. So
Okay.
that's how they discussed it.
So this is bars from here on out opening?
Yes, because right now, we would default back to the one, right, with the language that's a little messed up. We would defer in someone's favor and not do it the other way.
But in the last one, were they referred to as professional security, or were they just bouncers?
Oh, it's always been
always been
professional
professional
security.
security.
Yes, that has not been.
And what qualifications does that require?
I don't have it memorized, but I think they have to take a class, there's some training, they have to be a certain age,
Yeah.
between there was 18 and 21.
So that's
Yeah.
not included in the Greenville bouncer training?
No.
Yeah,
no.
I don't know if the bouncer training mirrors it to the same. I do know the bouncers downtown, there's been a concerted effort in recent, because of all these issues I'm kind of describing. They have had some more training, they have changed their policies a bit. I don't know if it directly mirrors how they would do security personnel with statutes, but they're obviously aware of what those requirements are and could attain that, so.
If this helps, an off-duty police officer fulfills those requirements, meaning an officer could be a bouncer, but a bouncer can't be a security personnel. Does that help?
Absolutely, yeah.
I guess I just have one question. You said that council sent it back to you about the burden. What changed? Because I didn't see anything about anything that changed between council sending it back and it coming here.
It was, the discussion was when it came down to having 2 officers minimum, that could be burdensome.
Sure.
And so there was a discussion at one of the council workshops about, okay, is requiring 2 officers minimum, two officers burdensome. But again, an off-duty police officer will run you $50 an hour. If your bingo trivia night runs from 11 to 12:30, that's 1.5 hours times two, right? And so in the end, with the idea of having public safety and the fact that these establishments can all have not only wine and beer, but they can have mixed bev. That was part of the rationale for if it's going to be after 11, then this kicks in.
And I didn't mean in that regard. I meant literally just in the wording what changed because the burden.
I think it was just the number, right?
Yeah, because it's
Okay.
originally said 1
Right.
Right.
to 1 to 100.
Yeah, I thought we had already voted on the 1 to 200.
We did, that's what I'm saying. And it
Okay.
wasn't until council, someone said, do you realize you've contradicted yourself?
Gotcha.
Y'all voted not, with no one realizing there was an error in the previous.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, because this is the third time.
And again,
We voted on this.
council,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay,
so-
cool. Just wanted to make sure I
May,
was
and
I was
tonight.
right.
Yes.
And Councilmember Scully, just again to kind of relay the same concerns Mr. White has, he was very cognizant this could be a burden on small businesses. Ultimately, what they settled on though is if you had 1 rather than 2, that you couldn't cover both interests and stuff, and at this time of night. So I mean, again, I think they kind of struggle with determining what that balance is gonna be, but that's where they settled on.
I was mostly just wanting light back.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah. Trust us, we were all.
I'm sure everybody had that thought.
Any other questions for staff? Or thank you. The public hearing is open. The first speaker will have 5 minutes, with each additional speaker having 3 minutes until 30 minutes has expired. Is there anyone present to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone present to speak in opposition of this request? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed, and I'll turn it over to the board for discussion or a motion.
The only thing I have to say about it is that the extra duty solution that employees, the police officer, is a very great tool to use. Unfortunately, the police officers don't always take the shifts. So every business downtown can apply for those officers to come and be in those positions and fill them and be willing to pay them. But that don't mean the officer's gonna take the shift. And I guess my thing is, what happens when the officer don't take the shift? Is that place not allowed to open? These new businesses that come, they can't open for that night because you only get like a 48-hour window. The officer can actually call in and say he don't want to work, they might be sick and something. So it's just a lot of variables that goes along with this text amendment that just really needs to be readdressed.
So we can
That's just
attach.
that's just my little thing on it. I can vote, you guys can vote, and I'll just vote my part, but we're just having a discussion.
Up, down vote. If you guys want to include commentary or note that says, like, as part of your motion, we would like you to look at the number or the impact on small businesses or something along those lines, cool. But obviously, if the commission votes against it, that's your message to council that you don't support
Right,
it with being
right.
text amendment. So we usually just prefer the up, down, because that makes it simple.
Right.
But obviously, we can, staff will be present at the council meeting, we can obviously relay all these concerns. And again, I mean, it doesn't have to be a police officer. There can be security personnel that is not law enforcement officers, but law enforcement officers by statute immediately qualify as security personnel. So again, I think there's agencies, I think he's probably more familiar with the procedure of hiring them, getting them there, all that kind of stuff. We just know it's not directly like you have to get an off-duty cop, so just, but that's a base kind of.
Would you mind switching back to the chart with the numbers?
This chart? This is.
This is the new one.
Yes, this is what you're approving. So this says, just up here at the top, so your GS 74C, that's the actual language that talks about what qualifies you. And then what this chart says is that it's based on your occupancy. So not that you have 5 people that night, but your occupancy. So if you have up to 200, as far as your CO is concerned, then you would have 2 personnel, again, only required amplified entertainment after 11. So your 2 security personnel would be there. They would be there until you close. This would allow you to have 1 person inside, 1 person on the outside, whether it be parking lots or just dispersing of the crowd. And then you can see the numbers go up 1 for every 100. And not to sound snarky, but if your security personnel called out that night, I mean, obviously you could still open, but maybe you couldn't have trivia night. Doesn't keep you from opening your doors. It's the amplified entertainment.
Right.
piece.
It's, so you can't reach your maximum potential for that night.
That's right.
And all I'm saying, no, everybody would love to have GPD doing their thing. I mean, it's the most beautiful thing in the world. GPD, extra duty solution, is the cheapest when it comes to that. Other security companies are very expensive. That's when I mentioned the 120. So that's all I was saying. But it's an up and down vote, and we can do a commentary, and I would love to put my little commentary in there.
And that was also my question, with the establishment, who is paying, the bar, who is paying either GPD or a private security?
If off-duty is still paid by the establishment.
Okay.
It would not be Officer Tom Smith, it would be Tom Smith's security personnel. So that money doesn't, it's not an agreement.
So
with
they
the
don't
city.
really have any legally, like, it's not binding for them to come into work that night, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Right. No, they don't have to. You could just.
Unless you have a
So you're not gonna lose your job if you don't wanna show
You
up.
have, I don't know, Peter's Tacos and Entertainment.
But couldn't you
right?
have a contract with a security agency to provide our stuff for a year? I mean, is that possible?
No, they don't.
They don't do that?
Nah.
I guess my question too is,
They don't.
like, I mean, if you have 500 people in a bar, how many bouncers do you typically have? Like, I guess is the number less for
Well-
security people compared to bouncers? So like, would it even out? Like, let's say you have 200 people, but normally you're
Right.
paying 5 bouncers $10 an hour, where you could just have 2 guys, you're paying 20
Right,
bucks an hour.
so the difference, not to take over the floor, the difference is the off-duty police officer doesn't have to take the shift.
Right.
The security.
I was just looking at
Right.
economic.
But the bouncers are gonna be, but they're not
What happens if
qualified
a
by the
bouncer-
security. The bouncer's gonna show up.
What happens if a bouncer doesn't show up?
You're still gonna have a lot of them. You can get them. Like, all you have to do is just promote it and then send them through the training.
So anybody could just show up and be the bouncer?
No, not anybody. You're gonna be selected because it's your business to represent them.
Oh,
But
okay.
once you get them, you send them through the training at GPD, and then you just bring them on. They get a 2-year certificate saying that they did the training and stuff like that. But as far as security companies and stuff like that, security companies are, in my opinion, they really look at the situation and just inflate their prices. That's just my opinion.
Right.
But we can vote on this up and down, and I just put my commentary and just.
Well, the commentaries only include if it's with the vote. So if you vote against this, for instance, and everybody else doesn't feel the same way, that wouldn't be as like part of the message to the
Yeah.
council.
Oh,
We
okay.
could
It'd
tell
be
them
the
what you
commission
thought.
as a
but-
whole.
It'd be part of the motion
Yeah.
to say approve, but with this,
Yes, assuming everybody agreed.
yeah,
So you would need the language, and then you would modify it to comport to whatever message you
yeah.
want to add.
You want to make a motion to approve and add a recommendation?
I'd like to see some numbers run or something to see the economic impact on small business owners, but that's just my two.
There's going to
two
be
cents.
a wild disparity, I would think. in the
Yeah,
You
it
numbers.
think?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
But I think,
We don't know what their intake is. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
if they run trivia night on Thursdays, we don't know if that's an extra 500 in their pocket or an extra 50 in their pocket.
Yeah.
I think we also have to look at this and remember that a lot of the bars that we have in Greenville are not small bars.
Right.
And these requirements, I mean, think about going to Dirty Dance. I don't know what their occupancy is, but we're requiring let's say it's 400, we're requiring 4 personnel to be there. And that have teeth to their actions, when in fact we have instances of roofing and all these other crimes that bouncers can't enforce other than throwing somebody out.
Right.
So I think if we're looking at it from public safety, I think it is a thing on smaller businesses, it is a burden. But I think on the larger businesses and the ones that might have more issues, particularly surrounding college students, maybe it's not that bad of an idea, and I think that I think the smaller businesses might have a problem, but I think that there are resources to help with that, i.e. off-duty police officers.
If they take the shift.
But again, this is not retroactive.
Right.
So they're doing business as they've normally done business. It would only be new.
Well, and I think if an off-duty police officer accepts a shift, they'll show up for the shift, providing no extraneous circumstances.
Well, sometimes that doesn't happen either. But we can go on and vote, and I'm really just
Yeah.
putting everything.
Well, we
out
need a
there.
motion, so if you want to you've got the
Oh, yeah, something
concern,
else
so
to
if
say.
you.
One last
okay.
thing,
Yeah.
sorry, I know this is
good.
probably stated, it's one, it's an increase of security personnel.
Or clarification.
Only the 100 group.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I see.
It was going to just be one, now
No,
it's
it's
two.
two. I see.
But the previous verbiage and language in the thing said 1 and 2. So it was kind of like, that. It's really just remedying that issue.
There for 100 and then 2.
Yeah. It's just to correct mixed messages in the ordinance.
So if we all approve it, we can send a message, but if we're up and down, we can't send a message.
Well, I think the motion has to include
So you
the
guys are-
comment,
yeah.
and then we vote on that,
The up and
right?
down is voting
Or
on the
or somebody
actual-
can make a friendly amendment to the motion and say, how about we
Yeah, so.
soften that language or strengthen it or whatever?
Yeah, so the up and down is on the actual language that's presented to you. So you're not going to sit here and modify kind of the language of what's going to go to council. on that.
Right.
What you can do, though, is an up-down vote saying, yes, we approve as presented to us, but we would like the council to be cognizant of the impact on small business owners in regards to bounce requirements, or however you want to frame it.
That sounds great, let's do that.
And if somebody wants to.
Yeah,
say
that's
as
very
stated-
good. So,
If somebody wants to make that motion as stated, we can try to do it that way.
You wanna make that
But you have to include that language, so
yeah,
I'm happy I'm here.
I feel like I need to write something down.
yeah.
No, I can talk you through
You
it.
can take a minute to gather your thoughts
Yeah,
or
read
kind of
the-
talk it out.
Read the language in your packet, but yeah, if you guys want
Right,
to try
you
to.
got that, right.
But the
clear.
intent, what Scott's saying is though, is it still has to come from the commission as a body and not Rice.
Right.
says.
Yeah.
That's it. So if your other commission members agree,
What I
Man-
what I would propose is a member, depending on whichever way you want to write, read the language that's required in the packet, and then once you get to the end of that, we can add some additional language. And I'll be right here to coach you through it. I try my
Yeah,
best.
you want to
There's no
go
way I'm
for
gonna be able to
it?
repeat it the same.
Yeah.
Make the motion and,
Yeah.
Top one or what?
yeah.
Motion to approve, recommend approval of the proposed amendment to advise that is consistent with the comprehensive plan to adopt the staff report which addresses plan consistency and other matters, and
With instruction that the council consider the fiscal impact on small business owners. Does that work?
You guys,
Yeah.
That'll work.
okay? Yeah, you
Change it however you want.
Is that your motion then?
I just know that this is like, this ain't right, man. It's
mean,
gonna be a burden,
agree.
man. It's
Well, you guys
tough
can,
on-
I mean, you can vote against it. You don't have to
I
approve
mean,
it.
they can vote, I'm just gonna vote, I'll do my little
I'm
vote.
torn on it, but.
Yeah,
Well, you made a motion to approve.
yeah.
I know, but I think it needs to happen.
Yeah, I got it.
Of
Well,
course,
again, this is
everything
all
that's happened this
advisory.
summer as well,
We
but
also
I just-
could add a something
Yeah.
in there, unless
Yeah.
I'm lying to you,
Yeah.
which Scott will tell me, saying that maybe we could look at bouncers as an alternative
Yeah.
to these small things,
So
these smaller establishments.
His motion as stated with instruction to council that they consider the definition of security personnel.
There you go.
Did we
And
need
you
to write
can-
that
and
down?
you already
Yeah.
said
The potential, I was trying
the
to.
definition of security personnel.
No, but I got those, with instruction to council to consider the potential costs to small businesses.
I stated that one originally to try to help them out.
Okay.
I think with the crux of the issue though is the definition of security
I
personnel.
think
Yeah, definitely.
the cost is
Okay.
relevant.
Right.
If they can do one and not the other.
What is the definition of security versus bouncer?
I don't have the statute in front of me. but
I can pull it up and read it if you, I just know that a
But-
bouncer is not qualified
Right.
to fall under that statute through probably numbers of hours and, a certification.
So how do we word this again, then? I'm just kind of, you threw me off for a second.
It depends on what you guys are trying to say. So what I would advise, at least from what I've heard, is the motion as stated, which we still kind of have on the board and not really necessarily finished, with instruction to the council to look at the definition of security personnel
Correct.
and to examine the fiscal impact on small businesses, if you really want to make it fancy. Does that work?
You got it?
Okay. Now, you can just say as stated.
As stated.
Now, does anybody second? And I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I don't mean to take over.
I'll say.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion of this, or are we ready for a vote?
Ready for a vote?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, say no. Motion
That was
passes.
the most tepid, unanimous support I've ever seen. We'll be, just so the board knows though, we'll do everything we can to make sure the council's aware kind of the concerns that were raised. And again, they had this kind of exact discussion. So I think they're very cognizant of the fact that there might be some small businesses that have an extra burden with this. I don't think anybody really necessarily wants that. It's just that balance between public safety and not. So ultimately, it's their decision. I think you guys have been heard. We'll make sure they kind of are aware of the message we're kind of trying to send with this, but that's about where we're at.
Thank you. Next item is election of officers. And do you have something to say about that?
All right, I think you guys have done this before. Mr. Chair is eligible for reelection, and he's done a great job. Our vice chair who's not here tonight, Zach, is not here tonight. So the way this generally works is chair will call for nominations. You guys will put forth a nomination. It does not require a second, and then majority vote. Close nominations.
And the vice chair only takes over when,
Right, he
but the
fills
vi-
in for the chair and has the exact same duties when the chair is not present.
right, so when the vice chair takes his role, vice chair cannot vote. He can just only read off.
Vice chair can vote as long as the chair is here.
Right,
here, right.
but if they're acting as chair,
If
they
they're acting as
can't,
chair,
they can only
they're
break
in
ties,
Right.
right?
Right. And the same rules apply for this. Your vote will break the tie, essentially, if it's for nominations and it comes close, and you can nominate yourself.
Okay. So I'll call for nominations, and I'll say that I am willing to serve again, but if there's somebody who would like to be chair, I would be happy to
Not to.
nominate them, right? Or, right, I would be happy to let someone else take a turn. So I will self-nominate for chair, and
I second that.
Okay, procedurally, a little defective, but we're just gonna roll with it.
So we supposed to,
yeah, are there any other nominations? Anyone else want to nominate themselves, or anyone else for chair?
It's perfect.
Okay?
Now you close nominations.
Okay, I'll close nominations,
Now you vote.
and now we vote on the nominations for chair. So what, all those in favor of me?
That works.
Or by, what is it, not a claim, but a acclamation or something like that? Whatever.
I will defer to the philosophy expert.
Okay.
We have one nomination for Mr. Collins to be chair again, to return. All those in favor? Aye. He is the new chair. Now we need to do the same thing.
Right.
We need to do the same thing for vice chair.
Okay, I will accept nominations for vice chair. Who would like to be vice chair? It's pretty, this is a pretty easy job, and
For
vice
real, it
chair is an
really
even
is.
easier
Well, how much
job.
time did he has left, though?
I don't know.
Nobody knows?
I thought Woodmansey's done, right?
Oh, Zach?
I-
Oh,
the,
No,
the,
he's.
the thing sat at the last meeting was his last meeting, so we have a vacancy for vice chair at this meeting. It's a good thing I was here.
Yeah, good thing he was here.
Yeah.
Been scrambling, all sorts of
Who would you
elections.
nominate?
I mean, I'd be happy to nominate anyone who would like to do it.
Conflict. I advise the entire commission.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't want to. All right, I mean, I guess I've been here. I'm not, no, I'll do it.
I'll nominate Carlos,
Because
yeah.
he's always
There you
here,
go.
so it's no pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Love
always
the
here shooting
enthusiasm,
free
guys.
throws.
The zealous commitment to service.
Yeah, no, we're good. I nominate myself, Carlos White, for vice chair.
All right.
Are there any other nominations for chair? Vice chair? All right, so I'll close the nominations. And all those in favor of Carlos White for vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Congratulations. Adjournment?
Great work, guys.
Thank you.
I was paying.
Is there a motion to adjourn? We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right, we're adjourned.